minds of other alcoholics, but I think George kind of reinforced the thought is, when you hear about a speaker from a long ways away, you figure, well, he's pretty good, So that's all I'm going to say about that. And then George comes up and says, well, you're from Buellton, ain't nobody going to come and listen to you. But that's all right, though, because I'm here to share with you and to my experience, strength, and hope, and to tell you about what it was like and what happened and what it's like now, and it being me. And I'd like to say welcome, Mel. And Ann also informed me that, I said, there's a lot of people from Santa Maria, Ann. And she said, yeah, but Leo is also having a birthday tonight, too. So happy birthday, Leo. And happy birthday to you, too, Brian. The only thing I can say about that, it doesn't seem like it's been a year since I've been learning from you. And you've been a real good help to me. I identify with a lot of your stories. It's good to be here. I really enjoyed the drive, Ann, coming down. The traffic was moderate and everything, And it was great, so we had no problem as far as that's concerned. I like to say that my alcoholism, kind of parallel with a roller coaster ride. Most of us know what that's all about. You have a lot of fun when you're going up, and you're coming down and you're going through your different loops and turns. Well, that's the way my alcoholism was, because I had a lot of fun when I drank, and I'm a fun person. That's what I always thought I was anyway. And alcohol helped me to do these things. But when I came on the scene, I think the alcoholism was already in progress. My mom, she was an alcoholic. She drinks alcoholically. And from a kid on up, I remember the hard times that we had going without food. And I think we moved quite a bit, My mom, she had something against paying rent, She sooner moved than to pay rent, and we did that quite a bit. And I remember, for a long time going without a lot of the things that other kids in the neighborhood had. And one of the most important things I thought in my life at that particular time was I wanted to join this Boy Scout, and I went to the presentation and I listened to it, and I liked it. And I was about 7, 8 years old. And I went back home and I told Mom that I wanted to join this Boy Scout and it would be good for me. And all I needed was $1 to join. And I could not get her attention for some reason. She was lying on the bed with a head half hanging off, and I didn't understand what was wrong with it. And it really hurt me then. And I learned to take that particular feeling and stuff it real well, and I didn't bother with it anymore. And that became a pattern in my life. It's taking my problems and just stuffing them and not doing anything about it. And so as time went on, I remember coming home from school sometime. We didn't have very much for lunch. Sometimes we didn't have lunch at all because alcohol had taken all the money and it had taken everything from us. And eventually it had taken these kids from my mother. I'll tell you all about my father that I know, and then we'll get on to my mother. Okay, now back to my mother, because that's about it. I don't know, I never heard. The only thing I know his name was Cleveland Sellers, and that's about it. And good luck to him or wherever he may be. But that never bothered me as I was growing up, because you never miss what you don't have. That's the way I looked at it. But there was always some man around the house. My sisters, there's 5 kids in my family, and my brother, myself, and 2 girls, and my younger brother. And my brother and myself are the only 2 that had the same father, so that tells you my mother was pretty active in her field. And there was this guy that came into our life, and he was, when my mother was pregnant with my sister that's under me. And he was the one that I called father most of the time. And I looked up to him for being father, but eventually he left because the booze got to be too much. There was a lot of violence in the house. I remember one time a clock being thrown, and my mother was hit in the back of the head, and she was knocked out unconscious, and we all thought she was dead, and just a bunch of turmoil and just disorganized all over the place. So growing up, about the age of 10, things got so bad for her, they took us away from her, and they put us into a foster home. And while I was in this foster home, I remember we used to go down and visit my mom when she was in jail, because she had a bad habit of writing checks when she didn't have any money in the bank to get whatever she needed, either be booze or food for the kids. And I used to go down on Sunday mornings. I remember I had this little, I always like to wear suits and ties. I don't mind doing that, I don't, it doesn't bother me to do that. People say, well, you put a suit and tie on if you're going to speak. Well, I do that because I enjoy it, and I don't have to look good, but I want to look good, and that's why I put it on, and I feel good with it. And I used to have this little yellow suit that I used to put on. My shoes wouldn't shine, but, it didn't matter. And my brother and I would get on the bus, the back of the bus at this particular time, and we would ride downtown and we'd visit my mom. And they would have church on Sunday mornings, and I would go and perform for all these ladies in the jailhouse, and it was just great, fantastic. I just discovered that that's why I like to perform in front of women nowadays, because, when I was young, even when I went to church, my mom, she would always say, come here, blink your eyes for the ladies. I had real long eyelashes, and I'd go, and boy, they were just great, fantastic, and I began to like that, and I enjoyed it, And there was, oh boy, I was a cute little guy when I was little, and all this kind of thing. But anyway, they went on from time to time, and finally we were put from different homes. I went to live with one aunt, and they didn't particularly want to take care of it because the county wasn't going to give enough money for them. And we went to another place, and they didn't want to take care of it because the county wasn't going to give enough money. We didn't have any place to go. For quite some time there, we were going from one place to the other. Finally, we got settled down at one of my aunts. I eventually ran away from her because of her brutality to kids. You know, she didn't believe in, I believe in the rod, but, you know, it's a little bit much when you get equipped with an extension cord with no clothes on, and this is what was happening, and I couldn't take it. And the reason it was being done was for the wrong reason. Her son had fallen and hurt his lip trying to lock the back door. When she came back from church, she had accused me and my cousin my age of beating on this kid, and she commenced to punish us. And she said, "You first, Bill." And of course I had to peep in the room to see what was going on, and here this woman had this guy with no clothes on except for his sock, with his head between the mattress standing on it and whipping him. And I had gotten off to my shirt, and that was as far as I got, and I left. And I told them what had happened and what was going on in that house. And all these aunts and things, they're supposed to be so religious and everything. It was a pattern that I grew up with, myself and my cousins. There was a cousin that was the same age as my brother, and a cousin my age, and a cousin my sister's age. And it was interesting as I went over what happened through our lives. You know, the cousin that's my age, I got a chance to visit him in May when I was in Texas, but he was on his way back to jail. He was only out for a few days. The one that's my brother's age, he's dead now because of he was a tough guy, and somebody finally got tired of him. And the other cousin that's the same age as my sister, he's in jail also, in the same room next to his brother. So all these things are happening, and I tell you this because I don't know how much alcoholism in my family had to do with the way I came up with. I don't know how much of that I can put onto that. But I found out a long time ago I found out when I first came to this program that, you know, my elevator doesn't go all the way to the top either, you know. And sometimes it doesn't even leave first floor. And this has been a problem with me throughout my life. But now I've gotten here, I can kind of straighten that out and continue to work on it. But after I left this aunt's house, we were determined to get back with my mom. And I got together with my sister while I was at this foster home. And while we were at this foster home, this was one of my greatest experiences, being taught how to be a worker and how to do things. We had everything that was for kids to grow up with, such as on the farm. You know, we pulled weeds and we graded and we plowed and we buried. We did everything. You know, we had cows and chickens and turkeys and geese. And I know George is waiting on this, but I'm going to tell you this little joke, you know. And that's why the black people raise chickens in the backyard. Well, it's to teach the kids how to walk. And those guys you see that strut around there like this, you know, with their hands in their pocket, you know, they folks had turkeys, you know, and all this kind of stuff. So where I was brought up, we had turkeys, chicken, and geese, and I do it all. I just strut around, you know, right? Being cool, you know, that's what it's all about, being cool. And, you know, growing up, I was always the guy that wanted to always help out. You know, I had all the answers to the problems, you know, let Paul take care of this and let Paul take care of that. So I came up with a scheme with my sisters that the last day of school we was going to run away from this foster home and go back to where my mother was. She was out of jail and working and seemed to be reasonably established in the home that she was in. And so on the last day of school, after taking my library book back to class so that I could get my grade card, we did this and we caught the bus and we ran away. Of course, they knew exactly where we went and what to do about it. And they asked my mother if she was ready to take us back, and she said yes. And I had promised that I would work and cut grass and do whatever I could do to pay for money, pay for the bills. And I said I'd never ask her for anything. And I then realized why she couldn't give me that dollar, because money just was hard to get, and she had to have her alcohol. And I understand that now. But anyway, we got back with Mom, and we stayed there with her for a while. And she met up with another alcoholic guy that came into our life. I didn't like him very much because he liked to fight and get violent when he drank. There was a couple of times we had incidents together, and I remember one night I said I wasn't going to put up with it anymore. And he had beat up my mother and he was leaving. And I knew where my brother kept his 22 pistols, and I went and got him. And he had a silver pearl handle pistol and an ordinary black one. And I picked up the black one and I thought, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it in style. So I picked up the pearl handle pistol and I went after this guy. And I saw him walking across the railroad track with his cane, and I took a couple of shots. I didn't know if I was going to hit him or not. I just wanted to really scare him. And obviously I missed him, and he threw down the cane, and I didn't see him for quite some time. But he eventually came back again, and some years later. And again, the same thing happened. I ended up walking home, and my sister met me on the street saying, Mom is being beat up by this crazy man. And I had to go home and rescue her again. And the only reason he gave up because he got tired of chasing me, and I had to get him away from the house, and that was my point of doing that. But then I got tired of doing a lot of these things that I was doing, you know, taking care of people and taking care of this. I was beginning to get a little bit worried about myself. And I finally made it through high school. I got up to the 11th grade, into the 12th grade, and 6 months before it was time to graduate, I quit. And for the simple reason is I just couldn't afford to graduate. And that hurt that I had remembered from the time I asked my mom for that dollar to join the Boy Scout. You know, it was back again. That lump was in my throat, you know, what am I going to do? And so I quit and I went to work, and she accepted that. I eventually went back into the service and got my GED. But that was the thing that was happening in my life then. And after I finished with the school, I started working. I got a job working for this guy that was putting up sheetrock. He was an independent worker, self-employed, I should say. And on Fridays when we got done working, if we did more than what we should have, well, we got a case of beer. Although we were underage, he bought us a case of beer. And the only restriction was that we had to drink it in his presence, and then we can go and do whatever we want to do. And we had a lot of fun those nights. We did a lot of crazy things. And, you know, it's not how much you drink, it's, you know, it's how you feel when you drink. And I wanted to feel, not fit in. You know, I hear a lot of people say they want to fit in, but I didn't want to fit in. I drank for the effect, and I knew what was going to happen. And I learned to like a lot of different liquors. You know, it didn't matter. It just indulged to the max. But as we went on through this job, I quit that job because I wanted to do something else a little bit different. And so I got a truck driving job for a liquor company. And that was different. Believe me, it was different. I was only 19 years old then at the time in Texas. And I was fortunate that I was always a good worker. And this guy could see this, and he asked me if I would drive a truck for him. And I said, yes, I'd do this. Well, I drove the truck for him for quite some time. And in the time that I drove this truck for this company, I accumulated quite a bit of booze in my house, and underneath the bed, and the sink, the closet, anywhere you can find the stashed bottles, I did it. And then most of it was given to me by the people that I worked with. Of course, it wasn't legal, but we got it. And at the time, I wasn't drinking so much, the hard stuff, you know. And then I got a job driving for Budweiser, and I didn't like the smell of beer, and then I got into the hard liquor, which was where I went haywire. So I left this job and joined the Air Force, because joining the Air Force would get me out of Texas. I wanted to get away from Texas because I had been mistreated by so many different people there. And you know, the thing with having to ride in the back of the bus and picking up your hamburger from around the corner, all those things happened to me. I remember my sister and I, we used to go into this big department store, and we'd look at these two water fountains. One said black and one said white. When nobody was looking, we'd go and drink from the white water fountain. We'd walk around and say, we're just as good as they are. What the heck are they talking about? You know, this kind of thing. And there was no difference, really, after I grew up and I found out. And I knew that there had to be a better class of people than what I was dealing with. And so I wanted out of Texas. And I wanted to drive a truck across country, but I wasn't old enough to do that, so I joined the Air Force. And what a nice way to go. I had a lot of experience in the Air Force. They really taught me how to drink, you know, like a gentleman after hours. And that was a part of my life that I'll never forget, because I learned quite a bit in the service about people in general. And when I left Texas, I left with the idea in mind that I'm going to go find some of my people, and I'm going to be with them, and, you know, things are going to be better once I get out of Texas. And when I left with 9 of us, and I was the only black guy. And when I got to my first base and boot training, I was the only black guy again. So there was something for me to learn, that there was a message in that. And I began to look at people and not the color of their skin and the way they treated me. And the only way that you could be my friend is you disproved yourself to me. It didn't matter what color skin or where you were from. And I got along with people great that way. But then the drinking started getting heavy. I was married to a lady that's is still in Texas now. And by the way, I am from Texas. You can tell by my tan, right? Yeah. Anybody else in here from Texas? No? You're close, right? Next door, Louisiana. Okay. And I learned a lot when I was in the service. And like I said, I learned how to drink too. In that first marriage I had, it was good for the first 2 years, and the second 2 years were just for the record. That's the only reason we stayed together. But I'll back up a little bit and go back to first going into the service. I was afraid to drink. I didn't want to drink. I had always told my mother that I was going to always stay at home and take care of her and be the little man that she wanted me to be. And I'd always say to myself, but I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink, because I knew what it did to her. And but I drank anyway. It started off very innocent, you know, social drinking. and I started getting more and more. As more responsibilities I picked up in the service, the more I drank, and I began to drink on the job, part-time. And it wasn't until before I got ready to go out of the service that I really ran into a lot of trouble with it. When I was overseas in Thailand, there was plenty of booze, and it was very inexpensive. They gave us what we call ration cards, and you could, every time you buy something, they would punch your ration card. And my card was always punched before the end of the month. It was always punched. And I always had to go get a friend and say, hey, let me borrow your card. You don't drink that much. And should have dawned on me then that something was wrong, but I didn't know anything was wrong then. I continued to drink. And there was a lot of drugs involved in that. And I used to say to myself, well, if I do a little bit of drugs, then I won't drink. So I didn't have a problem with drinking, you know. I could take care of that. See, I could stop anytime I get ready, but I've got to have a certain amount of drugs to deal with. We call it the Bryant theory. I like that. And that's the sick ideas that I had in my mind then. Well, when I came back from Thailand, back to this wife that I had in Texas, well, I got back about 9 o'clock, and I figured she'd be all happy, pleased to see me. I've been gone for 15 months, fighting for my country and all this good stuff. And she was, well, how are you home? Yeah, I'm home. Is that all I get? Yeah, that's all I was getting. But that was okay. I accepted that. And later on that night, about 1 o'clock, she said that she had to go. And I said, where are you going? And she mentioned that she had to go to a party, and she wanted this friend to go, but the only way that she can get out was that she had to go by and tell her husband that, you know, she was going to be with her. And I wondered then what kind of games were being played then, because in the refrigerator was an open bottle of wine, so that wasn't for me. She didn't drink before I left. She was a church-going girl. And when I came back, she was a little demon. And she left at 1 o'clock, and she didn't come back until 7 o'clock that night. And she was limping on one heel. You know, one heel was broken. She was drunk, and the hair was all over her head. And I knew then what was going on. But I didn't have a car because she wrecked that when I was in Thailand, and she didn't say anything about that in her letters. So I came back to no transportation. And fortunately for me, the liquor store was just right around the corner. So for 30 days, I sat at home and drank. And I would go there, and the guy knew exactly what I wanted when I went in there. 6-pack of tall Old English and a half pint of vodka. And that was my daily job, and I'd do that. And sometimes he'd have it all ready for me. He'd see me coming through the window. Then I said that after I saw her and this man together, I became very angry, and I almost did something that I didn't want to do. And I did. I stopped. Thank God I stopped, and I looked at him. I said, I'm sorry to try to break you two up, because if you want to be together, who am I to stop you? I've got to go back to California to finish out my time in the service. And I dropped it, and I let it go at that. Thank God I did that, because I had murder in my mind, and I don't need that. And she wasn't worth it after all. Anyway, I left, and I came back to California, and I didn't know what I was going to do, because, you know, growing up with just one parent in a crazy home that I grew up in, I missed out on a lot of the basic training that we get as we grow up as kids, you know, the things that we value as we grow up. And my values were all screwed up. I didn't have much of a conscience. I did things, and I didn't think of the consequences of what I did, and when I did them. I just did them because they felt good at the time. And all this time that I'm in drinking, I'm thinking that I missed out on my childhood, so I'm going to have some fun now. And booze afforded me this opportunity to have this fun. And so I did these things. And so after coming back here, I settled down in the service, and I met this other lady that I'm married to now. And when she met me, I was coming out of a liquor store, and I had 2 bottles of wine. Every Sunday, this was my routine. So I'm a true alcoholic. Once I get into a routine, I stick with it, you know. I go all the way. Every Sunday, I would do this. I would buy 2 bottles of wine, I'd go to the park, and I'd sit down, and I would drink my wine and listen to my music, and I'd go back to the barracks. She saw me one day, and she asked me, she said, are you sure you're old enough to have that? And I said, well, I hope so, because I'm going to drink it anyway. So I left, and I went back and I drank it. The second time I saw her, she was sitting at the bar, and she was drinking milk, and that kind of stunned me, you know, sitting at the bar drinking milk. Never heard of that. My curiosity was piqued, so I went over and I started talking to her. I said, what are you drinking? She said, milk. Being a good guy, let me have a milk too, you know. And so I had a milk, and we sit there and we talked, and we found that we had a lot of things in common. And I told her at the time that I was married, and I was presently going through a divorce, and she proceeded to help me type it up, and which was very helpful. So after we typed it all up, the divorce was final, and here I am sitting in California, getting out of the service, no place to go, nobody to turn to. They gave me a cash money instead of an airline ticket back to Texas, and I had a paper bag, a plastic bag full of dirty clothes, and a suitcase in one hand. And I was leaving this base, and I didn't know where I was going to go and what I was going to do. And I'd be damned if I went back to Texas, because I didn't want to do that. So I decided to stick around in California for a while. And while staying here, I went back to see Elizabeth, and we talked quite a bit, and I got to know her, and we got to like her, and eventually we got married. And then my drinking really got going good. She didn't know what she was getting into, and I didn't either. You know, I was thinking today, you know, when I walked into this place almost 3 years ago, I didn't know what to expect, and when I came in here tonight, I still don't know what to expect. From one day to the other, that's why we live one day at a time. Anyway, we got married, and we proceeded on to go on to make this life a good life. Well, I always wanted a house so that I could come home and cut the yard and play with the dogs and sit out in the backyard and, you know, just be like the typical American man, you know, just enjoy life. But it wasn't to be that way because I kept drinking, and I would always get started on a project around the house, and heaven forbid, I got all the good intentions in the world to get this job done. It's going to be beautiful when I get done, but halfway through it, I can't finish it because I'm outside doing something else, and then I'm out doing something else, and I'm overdoing something else. Wherever I had a ball hit, that's where I was working. And it went on and on like this, and I had, you know, I hear people talk about being a closet drinker. Well, I drank all over the house and outside the house, you know. Well, if they could see me with their Bristol cream, you know how they make these commercials? This Bristol cream, how downright romantic it is. Well, I had mine out in the shed out back 6 o'clock in the morning, you know. It's my Bristol cream right there. It didn't matter, you know, what it was and when it was. When that time came, I had to have that drink, you know, I got it. And so I've always been able to excel in my jobs, and I was always willing to go in and start at the bottom and let them prove myself because I enjoy the work I do, and that helps me to do a good job. So I was never worried with that. I always ended up being a good worker on the job. But being a good worker on the job and also needing my wife's approval to drink became a problem. So that's why I had to start really drinking on the job. I had already been introduced to this, so I knew how to do it. And I would get it all in during the daytime so I'd be okay when I got home at night, at least I thought. And this went on time after time after time that, you know, I'd always promised that, look, I'm going to stop drinking, I'm going to stop drinking. And so I get a part-time job. Now I got 13 hours I can drink in. Boy, isn't this great? And most of the places I worked, you know, they approved of drinking. And they would come in and give you a beer, you know, and get you started. But little did they know I already had my pint in my toolbox. And this is where I kept my medicine at. And it got so bad that I used to bring in a pint for me and my friend, and then later on I used to bring a pint for me and my friend and a pint for me, because he drank a little bit too much for me. And this couldn't go on like that. I got very selfish with my alcohol, and very private with it. I wasn't much of a bar drinker because I didn't like bars. I never could talk loud enough to get the attention that I thought I needed, you know. So therefore, I just stayed away from bars. I used to come home from work early sometime because I was sick. I remember going back to work from lunch, and I went into the bathroom at 12:30, and about 2 o'clock I came out, and the boss was standing there. I said, I think I'll go home because I'm sick. He said, I think you're drunk. I said, well, whatever you think, I'm going. And I would leave and go home. Well, at this time, we were living in Riverside, this area, and a lot of that area, I was thinking about this yesterday, a lot of those times and incidents that happened then and that year, I don't remember much of it. I don't remember having blackouts, but I don't remember that much, because alcohol did a lot to my brains then. I remember looking at this picture. I've got a picture of myself on the mantelpiece, and on the back of it is 1980, I think, 1979 or 1980, and it said on it to my wife, I said, Dear Elizabeth, I know we're having a rough time now, but please try to understand me and love me. I don't know what the problem is, but we'll straighten it out. And you know, at that particular time, I didn't know what was wrong. I just could not stop drinking. I just didn't understand it. And I tried this old willpower thing, you know. It lasted about 6 hours, and that's about as much as I could get. Or I would be passing a liquor store, and I'd pass one up, and I'd stop at the next, and to celebrate it, I passed the first one up. That's as long as I could go. And that's all I could do. She left me and went to visit her parents over in Scotland, and I had full responsibility of the house and the dogs and everything, paying the bills. Well, I took care of most of that okay, as well as I could. But, you know, this thing about responsibility has been one of my big hang-ups, because I never wanted responsibility. I thought I had too much as a kid. I didn't have time for Paul, and I didn't want his responsibility. And I remember when I was getting divorced, and I said to a friend of mine, I said, unknowing what I really meant, but looking back in retrospect, I understand what I meant. I said, this time when I get married, I'm going to marry me somebody that's smart. Not necessarily smarter than me, but smart enough to take care of business. And that way it'll give me more time to drink and more time to work. Well, that's what I know what I meant then. That's what I wanted, is somebody to take care of this baby while he go out and act like a little foolish boy. And that's what happened. And so I continued to do these things while she was going to drink and have party. I mean, it just went absolutely wild, not knowing that I had a disease. Finally, we ended up making a move to Santa Barbara. You want to call it the geographic, that's what we can call it. We never said to one another, let's move and get a fresh start. But, that's what was in the back of both our minds. Let's move and get a fresh start. Nobody will know us. We can go up here and we'll do this. But you know the old story. It happened time and time again. No matter where you move, it happens again and again. And so we moved to Santa Barbara in another good position. And there it goes again, coming home with the booze on the breath and trying to hide. The things I did to get my booze was just pathetic. Yeah, even I was a thief, to get my booze, I had to do that. Even I lied, to do these things to get my booze. And I didn't like that. That's not what I intended to grow up and be. I had no idea that I would grow up and say that one day I need to have a drink and say something is wrong with my car when there's nothing wrong with it, just to get some money to buy something to drink. I never knew that. I never knew I was going to grow up and become a professional shopper, looking at the ads in the paper, trying to find the most booze for the less amount of money, When I first started drinking, it was always the expensive stuff. Then it started getting, not so much being the expensive stuff, as long as it gets down there and does the job, that's all I want. So trying to get out of this responsibility was a thing that I tried to do for a long time. And she gave me this opportunity and I failed it. And I realize now that it's okay to admit, I'm not very good with money, because when I get it, if I got a nickel, I'm going to spend it if I can buy something for a nickel. I'm not very good with money. I tried to say that to myself. I can manage long enough to get my bills paid, but if it's free money, I bought booze with it. And when I didn't have it, I was always thinking of a way how to get it. I've got to get something. My mind was always spinning. Somebody shared with us last night, and they was talking about how much a turmoil it is, to stay drunk. It's a lot of work, a lot of hard work to keep that booze coming. And you got to make sure you got enough to get you through the day. And that's what I always did, try to make sure I had enough to get through the day. I lost one job because of a drinking-related incident, and it was a good job, a well-paying job. Us alcoholics, when we do get out there and get going in business field, we excel. And it's because, I don't know if because we're alcoholics, but because of what it is. But anyway, I was always good at that. And I blew this job because I had to have something to drink. I thought that was my bottom, I thought I was on my way down on this roller coaster ride when this happened to me, because I could have lied one more time and gotten out of this to save my job. But when he asked me that question, I looked at him and I stopped and I said, yeah, I did it. He said, okay, pack your toolbox, you're leaving. And it hurt him, it really hurt him, and it hurt him, me a lot more, but I found out it hurt him because he trusted me and he depended on me. And I let him down. And I even went back and I told him that I was an alcoholic and I needed problem. He didn't understand. He didn't understand what I was talking about. He just said, I don't want to hear it. I can't do it now. I don't want to hear it. So I left that job and I got another job. And in Santa Barbara, and this job allowed me an hour off for lunch. An alcoholic does not need an hour off for lunch. Not a block away from the beach. I mean, my God. I can always remember the morning, but I can never remember my evenings, when I come back from after lunch. I don't know how I made it. Thank God I was a functioning alcoholic. I can still carry on. And, this is, I marvel over this now. How was I able to work with plus or minus 1,000 tolerance on these machines and then still maintain the amount of liquor that I was drinking? But I did it. I managed to do it anyway. But getting back to that job that I had, I left that job and I went to another one. I found another job that was real good for me, but drinking interfered again, and I started drinking. And the guy asked me one day, he said, you been drinking? I said, no, I just went to the dentist 2 days ago. I'm still taking that toothache medicine. A little likely story. He looked like he didn't believe me. But eventually, by this time I had heard that people have drinking problems do get help. And all this time, I'm thinking that one of these days I'm going to lick this thing. And I'm figuring that, what am I going to do about this? Because I got to stop drinking. And if I can't stop drinking, I got to stop living. And I had tried suicide once in the service. Damn plastic bag didn't work, I don't think I really wanted to. Most suicides are just a call for help. And this is what I was always wanting, just a little bit of help. And I was thinking about how I could do this. I wanted to let it be less painful as I could possibly be. But when I tried this thing called willpower, it didn't work. So I tried talking to some friends, and they told me that I was okay, just change my booze, change my drinking pattern. It's all in the big book. It's all there about how we do it, how we go through these different changes, not to drink like an alcoholic. And I couldn't figure out the pattern for it. And I would always send up these very sad prayers. Oh God, please help me stop drinking. And then what I really meant, he knew it. I wanted to keep drinking. I just didn't want to hurt so bad. I just didn't want things to be so rough. But it's getting down to the point now I've got to start living two lives, because I'm going to church and I'm going to work. And I'm beginning to really get involved with a lot of alcohol. And I'm still trying to maintain my status in this church. Well, you know, it all boils down to the thing when we get to our bottoms. And, you know, just like on this roller coaster ride, when you're coming down, there's always one kid on there that wants to that's really scared, you know. At least there was always one when I rode. I was really scared, you know. They always wanted to get off before this thing got to the bottom. But no matter how bad you want to get off, you can't until it gets to the bottom. And by this time, I want to get off this alcohol roller coaster, and I can't. I don't know the way to do it. I know it's sheer suicide if I jump off the side, but that might have to be the way. I'll think about it. You know, I was sitting here listening to a lady not long ago, and she was telling her story, and I hadn't identified with anything she said. And when she did say what she said, I looked up. I started identifying, because she mentioned the fact that she was driving down the highway, and she was trying to make up her mind which one of these. There's always one kid on there that wants to that's really scared, you know. At least there was always one when I rode. That was really scared, you know. They always wanted to get off before this thing got to the bottom. But no matter how bad you want to get off, you can't until it gets to the bottom. And by this time, I want to get off this alcohol roller coaster, and I can't. I don't know the way to do it. I know it's sheer suicide if I jump off the side, but that might have to be the way. I'll think about it. You know, I was sitting here listening to a lady not long ago, and she was telling her story, and I hadn't identified with anything she said. And when she did say what she said, I looked up. I started identifying, because she mentioned the fact that she was driving down the highway, and she was trying to make up her mind, which one of these trucks am I going to turn into? And I looked up and I thought, hey, yeah, you've been there. You know what it's all about. But I couldn't do that, you know, because, okay, I'll wait till you get that change. I don't miss any of this. Oh, okay. And so I couldn't find a decent way to do this, but, you know, I'm getting desperate now, and I'm really getting cranky, and I'm really getting squirrely. I remember coming home from work one afternoon. I was going to talk to two clergymen about my drinking problem. And, of course, I had to have a pint before I go and talk to these guys, otherwise I won't make any sense to them. Well, you should have heard what I said after I drank that pint. They don't know what I said after I drank that pint, and neither do I, but, you know, that's the way things go. That's how sick I was, because I thought, you know, I can explain them to them and tell them that if all these people would get off my back, if my job would be okay, if my wife would stop bitching about me drinking and all these things would stop, I'd be all right. I used to tell my wife all the time, if you get well, I'll stop drinking. She said, if you stop drinking, I'll get well. Well, you know, who's going to win that battle? Yeah, tough luck, lady. And I continued to drink, but now I understand all of this now. And even after talking to these gentlemen, you know, that still didn't help me out. And I had another run-in with the law about my booze, because I wanted to take some booze that wasn't mine. And I had to spend a day in jail, you know. And before I went to this, to show you the insanity of this thing, before I went into the jail, I had to do a half a pint, you know, in the car looking around. I run in, tell him my name, give him all my stuff. He goes, he locks the door, and then it takes effect. Now I can make this one day. That's all I needed, was to make that one day. And that's what booze did to me all that time. It just helped me make that one day. That's all I wanted to do, to get through the day. But anyway, after that incident, you know, I thought, you know, it's time to stop. It's time to do something. And I'm chicken, you know, so I'm not going to commit suicide. That's bull. So I decided I'll do something else. I talked to my wife about it, and she was very helpful in explaining to me that if I took all these vitamins and I changed my eating patterns and I get enough rest, that I could kick this thing. Okay, well, after about, $30, $40 worth of vitamins and sleeping more than what I'm used to and eating all this stuff that I'm not used to eating, still didn't work. So what happened? Now I've got to do something else. So she told me about AA, being a true alcoholic. Well, if they call me, I'll go. Otherwise, I ain't going. And when she told me, she said, well, they won't do that. And I thought, well, the only other way is either off the side of this roller coaster, or I'm going to go to AA. Well, when I came to AA, I realized then that, you know, it had to work. You know, this was it. This got to work. And I came here with the attitude that, you know, I'm an alcoholic. Will you guys accept me too? I wasn't afraid to say that, because I knew 2 years before I got here, maybe longer than that I was an alcoholic. When I stood on that street in Santa Barbara at 6 o'clock that morning, that liquor store hadn't opened up so I could get my day's ration of booze. And I was very angry. I said to myself, this is no different from that guy over there in the corner sitting in the gutter than me, except for I got a car and I got a job and I'm going to work. And I said to myself, I'm an alcoholic. By this time, the store had opened up, and I said, so be it, let's go to it. And I did. And I remember when coming out of this bathroom one day that I was talking about earlier, and I said then, after I woke up, never again. Never again will I do this. Never again. And I remember saying, okay, Ma, Monday comes, I'll stop. You know, about 3-4 years of Mondays came, and I'm still drinking. Still drinking. Why can't I stop? And then when I got here, they told me I had a disease. Well, I ate that up in a hurry. But thank God I wasn't going crazy. And then this guy told me something that made a lot of sense. You know, this room is full of wisdom, you know, all this good knowledge. And he said, Paul, you don't drink, you won't get drunk. That's what I've been looking for. That's what I want to hear. Well, I bought this program right off the bat then. And I started going to the meeting on Friday night in Buellton, the step study meeting, which I really enjoy. You know, I read the big book, but I study the 12 and 12, and I enjoy that kind of work because it's helping me to get back to living. And what I want to do now is to learn how to live. I've learned how to stop drinking. I've learned how to stay stopped. Now I've got to learn how to live because I didn't grow up when I was drinking all these years. I wasn't a very good student as far as life is concerned because I did all the things against life. I had a lot of religious training, and I knew that drinking wasn't right. And so I knew if I went back to church that I could do something about this. But, you know, even that didn't work. I was telling a lady today at the clubhouse, and she said about this meeting tonight. And I'd been telling a lot of people, yeah, come to Saturday night meeting, and they're going to have a good speaker. I didn't tell them who they were. So, Benny, you're out there. I'm sorry, but you're here, right? Okay. Anyway, she was saying that, well, I go to church over here. I said, well, this is not a church meeting. She said, yeah, but you can't go to heaven if you don't get saved. I said, you can't get saved if you don't get sober. It's as simple as that. So that was my first priority. And this thing with the higher power, you know, I had a problem with that, you know, for a long time. But thank God to this program, you know, he is directing this program. I've been able to work on step 3, and a few weeks ago, for the first time in almost 2.5, maybe 3 years, I went back to church. And when I left the church, I was telling you about this split personality. These people that I worked with didn't know anything about that. They had no idea that I knew anything about had a religious belief, and the people that I went to church with didn't know I had a drinking problem. So finally, this thing finally came together, and this is when I hit my bottom. It all had to just come out, and I had to lay it all on the line, what had happened, what I had been doing, and what was going on in my life. And being a good church and going by the Bible, they had to do what they had to do. If you got somebody amongst you and that they keep doing these things and they don't repent, you expel them. And when I was expelled from that church, that was the most devastating moment in my life, because I jumped on that pity pot and I wrote it for all it was worth. Because at that particular time, I felt like I had no God, I had no friends, because the friends that I've been drinking with, they're the reason I can't go back to the church, and the people at the church, they're the reason I can't go back to the friends I was drinking with. So I was in a hell of a mess. And I was really feeling sorry for myself. I was thinking, this is it. This is it. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. But thank God I didn't die. And after, I did a lot of personal inventory before I got to this program. I used to always review my days, what I had done. And a lot of times I wasn't pleased with them. That's changed now. I'm not all the time pleased with it, but I can accept it, and I don't have to go out and drink over it. And this program has afforded me the opportunity to start growing up and becoming an adult, and a responsible adult. And that's all I want to do, is become a responsible adult and do the will of my God. And although I had all this church training, it didn't do much good until I came to this program. And I don't say replace one for the other. They're both good. They go hand in hand. And I feel good about doing this, and I'm working on that 3rd step, and it's getting a lot better, because I found out what self-will run riot means now. I've been trying to do it all myself, and it just doesn't work that way. I turn it over to God, and I let him have it for a little while. Or either I turn it over to him and say, now this is how I want you to do it. Now, you take it step by step, and then it'll come out the way I want it to. But it didn't work like that all the time. When I let it go and turn it over, it usually comes out real good. You know, this thing with being able to live with our fellow man has been a problem with me too, because after I got sober, and particularly at home, you know, when you get sober, sometimes it gets a lot worse before it gets better. And I went through that, because after I thought I had learned this program, I was going to teach my wife how to live. And I was going to get my marriage straightened out. You know, I was going to fix it up. You know, back at the old self-will run riot. Well, after 6 months of browbeating this woman, it wasn't working. So somebody told me, so why don't you leave her alone? And I did, and it got better. Simple as that. And another thing, she started going to Al-Anon meetings. Thank God for Al-Anon. And she began to find out that she had a problem too. So this is a family disease, and in order for it to work, it has to be a family change. And if I change and she doesn't change, it's going to get worse. Because she was that mother that was taking care of this kid all this time, and she couldn't do a thing with me. Now all of a sudden I've got this program that I'm working with, and she's being replaced. So there was a lot of misunderstanding, and there was a lot of hard feelings there. And I didn't know what was going on. And I started learning these things. I started bringing out my feelings to other people and put stuff in them and telling them what I felt. And you know, surprising enough, I got answers. This is how it works. We get answers from one another. I started finding out if I work my program and let her work hers, everything will be okay. If I stay on my track, she stays on hers, it's okay. But when I get on her track or she gets on my track, it's back to the old games that we play, you know, pushing those buttons. I used to do things that, you know, that she hated. Like when I wake up in the morning, she hated that. When I was drinking, she hated that. Oh, here he goes again, you know. And we played those silly games for a long time. And I didn't realize that they were games that we were playing. I thought that just the way you live. And I realized being on this program that you don't just wake up and get sober and have a happy family. That's something you got to work at. You got to work hard at. Anything worthwhile having is worthwhile working for. And I thought that, you know, I got sober, it's all going to be better. And it didn't dawn on me until she looked at me one day and said, "You little bastard, you haven't changed at all. You just stopped drinking." Ooh, that was a hard blow to take. I had to reevaluate my situation, what was going on, and back up and go back and start doing some of this work, you know. Start taking some of these steps and getting some of this stuff serious. You know, all my life, I was talking about performing for people. You know, I learned how to do that, and I enjoyed it. And I used that quite a bit when I was, you know, going through the different phases of life. But, you know, after I got here, I had to stop performing. I had to stop people-pleasing, stop walking on eggshells, and start getting serious with this thing. Because after a while, if you just stay sober and don't do those steps, that's all you are, just sober. And life is not very good that way. Not for me, it isn't. And I began to enjoy life. You know, there's times that I have problems at work, now I can handle them. You know, I thought I left all those people in Texas that treated me that way, but, you know, they're still around. There's a few. And thank God, you know, I haven't seen any in this program. And we were talking about that, you know. And one of the reasons that you don't see it, because if it's a little bit of prejudice, no matter what color your skin is or what your religion is, if you're being somebody's prejudiced against you, they're not working their program. Because this program is a program of love. And it dawned on me that, you know, this is why it's like this in this program. You know, I always had to be the kind of guy that, you know, being put in these different situations, I was the only black guy. I always had to perform. I always had to be better than the next guy because everybody's watching me. This other guy, he can get away with just enough to get by, but I've got to be good. I was always under pressure to perform. And I always had to have the move to do this. But, you know, when I got here, all that stopped. You know, I didn't have to perform. I could just sit down and take it one day at a time and just be myself and learn who I am. And learn that this program is a selfish program. And I was sharing here one night when we had a participation and meeting, and I shared the fact that, you know, this is a selfish program. And if you don't want what I got, leave me alone. Simple as that. And if you want what I got, come, I'll show you where to get it from. And later on that night, some of you might remember this, we had a gentleman in the back that was trying to get his card signed before the prayer had started. So you know what he was all about. You know, he's back there saying to the speaker that was up there, "Oh God, isn't he sick?" And he was reeking with booze, you know, from the front to the back. And anyway, after the meeting was over with, I was talking to this gentleman. I had never met him. And we were talking, and I'm listening to him very honestly and his problem, and he's telling me about how he kicked his wife out and bought a bitch, and talking about a dog and all this other stuff, and I'm thinking, this guy really needs help. And then he told me he knew about AA. Say, you don't want my help, fella? And just what I had said earlier, I said, you don't want what I've got, leave me alone. I got work to do. From what I heard, what you said, your only problem is you drink too damn much. And I continued to put away the books and the speakers in the ashtray and what I was doing. Well, that's what this program is all about. It teaches me that I can help when the help is wanted, but if it's not wanted, I don't have time for it. Because, you know, people is taking time out with me, and if you get serious about this program, as they said in the beginning, if you thoroughly follow our path, you know, you'll make it. And it's like being in rooms like this and talking with people like you that causes me to be able to handle the problems I have. In particular, there's a problem with my job that I had with this guy. He wouldn't leave me alone. He considered me to be his token black. Okay, he would come up and tell me all his jokes, and I eventually told him, I said, look, Bob, I don't want to hear what you've got to say to me, because your jokes are humiliating, they're dirty, and they're disgusting. And I said, they're not funny. And I said, please, don't tell me anymore. Well, he insisted on coming and talking to me every time. I don't know why I was attracted to him. But anyway, I eventually, trying to handle this problem, it got so bad I was talking about it in meetings. I was talking to my wife about it. She got all upset at this guy, and I said, well, you know, he's really a sick person. But I'm having a tough time with this. And I said, well, he's not bothering me. She said, it must be. You come home and you talk about it every week. So eventually I thought I'd solve this problem. You know, self-will runs riot again. I get me an equalizer, which is a 2 feet pipe about this long, And after he walks up to me and says, I knew he just thought this up when he saw me. He said, you know what the 4 dirtiest words in Texas is now? I didn't even answer him. He said, Jesse Jackson running for president. Ha, 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 ha. Oh, that fired me up. He gave me 2 minutes to think about it. And I said, I'm going to have fun with this guy, and I'm also going to straighten him out. Now, here I am. I'm 33 years old, and I've got a good job, and I've got responsibilities, and I'm ready to fight on the job. And I'm sober. Well, this is the way to be, you know, but, you know, self-will is running riot. But the point of this whole story is this guy's got a problem. But it finally dawned on me, I had a problem too, because I couldn't deal with this guy that had a problem. And once I realized that I had a problem dealing with this guy with a problem, it was okay. Because I talked to my wife about it, and good old Al-Anon came out. She said, why don't you practice detachment? Okay. So he's not there whenever he comes around. He's not there whenever he comes around. And now he's giving me a little bit more respect. And this same guy, by the same token, this guy walked with me just last week. And I said to myself, here he comes. And he had a different look on his face this time, and I listened to him. And he told me, he said, I tied on a good one last night. I said, oh, yeah? He said, yeah, my brother and I, we got drunk, and we went to the bowling alley, and I went off and left him, and I don't know what happened to him, and this and that. He's only do it once every 9 months. But you know, this guy, if he walked through that door and said, my name is Bob and I'm an alcoholic, he would be right. But back to that thing is, it's not how much you drink, it's how you felt when you drink. And he told me, he said, I said, well, you only do it every 9 months, that's not too bad. And he said, well, I can live without that. So that's the point. It's not how much you drink, it's how you feel when you drink. And I listened to this guy. Now, he knows I don't drink it, he doesn't know why. He didn't know anything about me, but he came to me with that because he wanted to tell somebody about it. And he said, you know, I'm never going to do it again. Well, we know the old story about that. He says he's never going to do it again. But anyway, that's one of the things that this program has afforded me to deal with, you know, problems like that. And there was another incident that happened with a black guy and a white guy, and this black guy came to work with us. His attitude, he's one of these guys that he looked like he escaped from the penitentiary, okay? Now, I look like I might go to jail, but I don't look like I would escape. But he looked like he would escape. I mean, he looked so bad. Like, they picked him up Monday. He spent all day Monday in jail because he looked like a guy that escaped from Lompoc. And that's the true story. Well, anyway, this white guy came up to me and he asked me, he said, what's wrong with this guy? Why is he screaming at me and saying, don't talk to me, he doesn't like me? I said, look, he's got a problem. Probably he doesn't even know about it. It has nothing to do with you. So you just take it easy and stay away from him. Practice detachment. He said, practice what? I said, just stay away from him. And everything will be all right. On Friday, this guy got fired, the one that looks like he's a convict. He got fired because of his attitude. But see, I was able to not take sides with this guy because he was black, but because he was wrong. I was able to point out the fact that it's okay. So this program helps me to do things like this. I remember I used to do things for people just to get something back. It was always on a condition. You know, what can I get out of this if I do it? I sharpened this guy's screwdriver, and I said, I'm going to take it back to him and show him what a good job I did. Second thought, why don't you just sharpen the damn screwdriver, use it, and give it back to him and shut up? You know, unconditionally. I do a lot of things now unconditionally because of love. That's what this program is based on, is love. And I can do this. Most of you know me around this place. I'm always hopping around here doing one thing and another. You know, that helps me in this program. It helps me to stay sober. I'm always a busybody. I've always been like that all my life. Always doing something. Outside of being an alcoholic, I'm a workaholic. I'm working on that now because working is getting in the way of living. So I'm learning how to live now, and I want to, you know, get off this working bit. But I've been able to put these pieces together in my life. And, you know, when I went home in Texas, the beginning of this year, I made one of the hardest 12-step calls I've ever made, and that was on my mother. Bless her heart, my sister was going to Al-Anon trying to figure out the answer. All my relatives are still in Texas, and they all live close together, and they all look after Mom, and they try to take care of her. My brother's answer is, yeah, she's got a problem, she needs help, and that's all they can say. But when I went home, we went to our first meeting together. It was really enjoyable. It was in a place like this, and I said it earlier, I'll say it again, I looked like the fly in the buttermilk in that group. But that was okay, because it was all the same thing, talking about not drinking, about getting sober. And I gave her the big book. And, you know, before I went there, I had to go to a couple of Al-Anon meetings to find out the things that I should and shouldn't do. And when I first got on this program, I couldn't wait to go home because I was going to tell everybody how sober I was and how sober they should be. And you don't do it like this. This is a program of attraction rather than promotion. And it was very difficult to stand there and to hear us say that I'm not having a problem with alcohol. And there's 2 bags full of empty beer bottles and half-pint bottles. And we drink the same way. My drinking pattern, after I grew up, turned out to be just like hers. And she went to a few meetings with me. She said she's doing okay and she's still going, but when she gets ready, she'll be ready. And I was able to go home and talk to some people, and it's a good feeling to be able to talk to somebody and have something to say, not because you know it all, but because you do have the information. And then they listen to you, having to listen to you. And you can able to say what has happened to you in life and explain some of these things. My sister thought I had a damn good program. She thought it was so great that she's going to go. She doesn't have a drinking problem, but she's got all the other problems. The same thing. She has the guilt trip. She has the remorse. And she has all these family problems that we all have. And she doesn't have a way to deal with it. It got so bad that she shot herself in the stomach thinking that I'll get some help this way. With the 22, somebody told her to put a pillow in front of the gun and it wouldn't hurt. And she did it. She walked around for 6 hours before she decided to call my sister, who was becoming a doctor now, and told her about it. And when she told me this, I told her about my problem, and she said, it sounds like we got the same thing. I said, if you like to, why don't you go with Mom and pick her up and take her to a meeting? This is the program of living, where we learn how to put our lives back together. Well, I'm learning how to put my life back together. I'm learning the meaning of honesty, the meaning of truth. All these things I knew nothing about. They were strangers to me. I didn't know how to tell the truth. I just assumed to tell a lie than to tell the truth, and it didn't really matter. It just felt good. I did it because it felt good. I learned when I got to this program that that's also a sickness, that I could get well from that. I used to steal, I used to lie, and I used to drink. I don't have to steal, I don't have to lie, and I don't have to drink. It's because of this program. And if you want what we got, you just hang around long enough. And there's a lot of sayings that they'll tell you about, and you'll hear them. And one of them I like in particular, and I like to see it on a bumper sticker, and it's by one of our own, Jack, when he says, it's a hell of a deal. It's a hell of a deal. And if you hang around long enough, you'll understand what these things mean. And then you'll be able to TCB, if you just KCB, that means take care of business if you keep coming back. Just keep coming back. That's all you have to do, and that's all I have to do. One day at a time. That's where this program works so well for me, because I couldn't handle it. Somebody told me when I first got here that I was going to have to stop drinking for the rest of my life. And you know what a wall banger that is. Not for the rest of my life, just for today. Just for today. And a lot of the things I have in my life that's going on that I don't particularly like, I'm taking care of it just one day at a time. Just one day at a time. I'm doing my yard work that way, except it's 1 week at a time now. I do one thing 1 week at a time and it gets done. I don't have to get into a frenzy like I used to when I was drinking and start trying to do 5 or 6 different things, and I get all screwed up in the head and I get in trouble with the wife. You know, I have a responsibility to myself and my well-being. If I'm feeling bad and something is wrong with me, I have to acknowledge that and realize that my attitude is going to change because I'm feeling different, and not to take it out on my fellow man and my wife. I'm learning to deal with these things that come up every day from time to time. And it's making me a better worker and a better person and a better human being to live with. All I want to do is just have a natural life and do the things that's expected of me. And if you keep coming back around these rooms, you'll get what I've got. And I've given you part of my wardrobe. You can try it on. If it fits, you can wear it. If not, pass it back to the next guy. And if it does, then you can have it. Because it's yours to keep. I can't keep what I've got unless I give it away. You understand what that means if you keep coming back. There was one other point I was going to make. Well, you know, it's been something else. Most of the speakers that come here, they only come up once or maybe twice a year, but I've been watching my name go from the bottom all the way up to the top every Saturday, you know. There it is up at the top, and boy, by God, it's been good, you know. It's been an experience. It's been an adventure. It's enhancing my life, my sobriety, and I enjoy doing it. And I'm thankful that Ann asked me to come up here and to share with her. I was trying to get all these things together. You know, each speaker came up and I would sit there and grit my teeth. Damn, that's what I was going to say. Damn, that's what I was going to say. But you know, if you're not used to prayer, you know, you come in, you ask God to help you not to be like those people and be yourself. You know, and it works. You know, I can be myself and I can say what's on my mind and not have to worry about or rely on what somebody else says. Because this is a program that you have to learn how to work yourself. And if somebody tells you how to work your program, you tell them forget it. Because nobody's going to tell you. And if they tell you, you know that something's wrong. Because they can suggest to you. You know, we don't take orders very well, but we do take suggestions. So I suggest you keep coming back. And remember, for all you do, this program is for you. Thank you.